In August 2014, a tourist standing on the deck of a river cruise boat on the Adelaide River in Australia's Northern Territory raised a camera and captured one of the most extraordinary photographs in modern wildlife documentation. Rising from the muddy brown water, jaws locked sideways around a thrashing bull shark, was a saltwater crocodile so weathered and scarred that its hide looked like cracked asphalt. The crocodile was missing its entire front right leg. The bull shark was over a meter long and fighting with everything it had. And the crocodile was not struggling at all. His name was Brutus. Tour operators and wildlife rangers along the Adelaide River had been watching him for decades. He measured approximately 5.5 meters from snout to tail, roughly the length of a large SUV. His age, estimated by Northern Territory wildlife authorities through decades of observation and growth pattern analysis, was placed somewhere around 80 years. That means Brutus likely hatched in the mid-1930s, when Australia was still deep in the Depression, and saltwater crocodiles were being hunted commercially across the top end, in numbers that nearly drove the species off the continent. He survived that. He survived territorial wars with rival males that cost him his front right leg. He survived cyclone after cyclone, tearing through the Adelaide River floodplain. He survived decades of drought seasons that shrank his river to a chain of muddy pools. And on that day in 2014, he was doing what he had been doing for the better part of a century. Hunting. Killing. Dragging something beneath the surface that most humans would consider the scariest animal in any body of water. Except Brutus was scarier. That photograph circled the globe within days. News outlets ran it on front pages, social media recycled it for weeks, and the question that kept surfacing, the one that biologists found most interesting, was not how a crocodile catches a shark. That part is mechanics. The real question was why a bull shark, a species that dominates every river system it enters, a predator responsible for more unprovoked attacks on humans than almost any other shark alive, would swim directly into the territory of an animal that has been perfecting the ambush kill for over 200 million years. That was 2014. Brutus is still on the Adelaide River. And he is still hunting. The answer to that question takes you back further than Brutus. Further than the river. It goes all the way to a time when the continents were fused together and the first crocodilians were already waiting at the water's edge for something to make a mistake. The Adelaide River stretches roughly 180 kilometers through the Northern Territory, draining into the Timor Sea through a wide, brackish estuary system that mixes saltwater tidal flows with freshwater monsoon runoff. For humans, the river is muddy, warm, and effectively unswimmable. For saltwater crocodiles, it is one of the most densely populated corridors of apex predators on the planet. Aerial surveys conducted by the Northern Territory government's Wildlife Management Division have counted over 600 saltwater crocodiles along the Adelaide River and its tributaries. That is roughly one crocodile for every 110 meters of navigable waterway. To put that in perspective, if you paddled a kayak down the Adelaide River at a casual pace, you would pass a crocodile large enough to kill you approximately every minute and a half. The river is also home to the famous jumping crocodile cruises, commercial boat tours, where operators dangle slabs of meat from poles above the water, and crocodiles launch their bodies vertically out of the river to grab it. The tours have been running since the 1980s. Brutus has been one of the main attractions for most of that time. Guides recognize him instantly by the missing front right leg, by the lattice of old combat scars across his skull, by his sheer size. He is not the largest crocodile ever recorded on the Adelaide River. There have been confirmed sightings of males exceeding 6 meters. But Brutus is the most consistent presence. Decade after decade, wet season after dry season, he surfaces in the same stretch of water. He has outlasted individual tour boats. He has outlasted individual tour companies. He has outlasted the careers of rangers who started tracking him as young officers and have since retired. And he shares that river with bull sharks. Not occasionally, routinely. Bull sharks are one of the only shark species on Earth capable of transitioning between saltwater and freshwater environments. They push into the Adelaide River through the estuary following tidal flow upriver, sometimes traveling 50 or 60 kilometers inland from the open ocean. During the wet season, when monsoon flooding expands the river system across the surrounding floodplains, bull sharks have been documented in water so shallow and so far from the coast that they are, for all practical purposes, freshwater animals. They enter Brutus's territory because their biology allows it, but their biology did not prepare them for what was already there. By the way, if you want the full system behind deep dives like these, with all the research, the sources, and the extended analysis, the ebook is linked in the description below. It covers the complete framework. Now, back to the river. What makes Brutus remarkable among large saltwater crocodiles is not his size, it is his durability. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest living reptiles on Earth. Males regularly exceed 5 meters and weigh over 450 kilograms, roughly the same as a grand piano. The largest saltwater crocodile ever reliably measured was a male named Lolong, captured in Bunuan in the southern Philippines in September 2011, who stretched 6.17 meters from snout to tail, longer than a standard shipping container is wide. Long weighed approximately 1,075 kilograms, just over a metric ton. He was confirmed as the largest crocodile in captivity by Guinness World Records before his death in February 2013, roughly 18 months after capture. Brutus is smaller than Lolong was, but Brutus has something Lolong never demonstrated: longevity under uncontrolled conditions. Lolong was captured and died in a controlled facility within 2 years. Brutus has been surviving in a wild river system for approximately 8 decades, enduring every variable that kills large crocodiles in nature: territorial aggression from rival males, parasitic infection, injuries that would be fatal in almost any other animal, food scarcity during dry seasons, and the legacy effects of decades of commercial hunting that decimated the population he was born into. The missing front right leg is the detail everyone fixates on, and it is worth fixating on. For a semi-aquatic ambush predator that relies on explosive lunges from the waterline, losing an entire front limb is catastrophic. Crocodiles use their front legs to stabilize during strikes, to maneuver prey once it is locked in their jaws, and to haul themselves onto riverbanks for thermoregulation. Brutus does all of this with 3 legs. The most commonly accepted explanation for the lost limb, according to wildlife biologists who have studied the Adelaide River population, is a territorial fight with another large male. Male saltwater crocodiles are violently territorial, especially during mating season. Dominant males patrol defined stretches of river and attack any rival that enters their range. These fights are not displays. They involve jaw-locking, body rolling, and the application of forces capable of shattering bone. A limb caught between the jaws of a rival during one of those encounters would be torn away at the joint. The wound would bleed heavily. In the warm, bacteria-rich water of the Adelaide River, infection would be almost certain. Brutus survived that. And the reason he survived it reveals something fundamental about what crocodilians are, not just as animals but as a lineage. Crocodilians belong to the order Crocodilia, a branch of Archosauria, the same vast clade that produced the dinosaurs and eventually the birds. Archosaurs first appeared in the fossil record approximately 250 million years ago, during the early Triassic, in the chaotic aftermath of the Permian-Triassic extinction event that wiped out roughly 90% of all species on Earth, the worst mass extinction the planet has ever experienced. While the ancestors of dinosaurs radiated into terrestrial ecosystems and grew into the dominant land animals on the planet, the ancestors of crocodilians chose a different niche. They went to the water's edge. And they stayed there. The earliest crocodiletomorphs, the broader group containing all crocodilians and their extinct relatives, appeared approximately 230 million years ago. By the late Cretaceous, roughly 80 million years before the present, the lineage that would produce modern saltwater crocodiles had already diverged. These were not transitional animals feeling their way toward a body plan. They were recognizably crocodilian, long-snouted, armored, semi-aquatic, ambush predators occupying the exact same ecological niche that Brutus occupies today on the Adelaide River. The reason the body plan has persisted for so long is not evolutionary stagnation, it is the opposite. The crocodilian design is so effective at what it does, lurking at the boundary between water and land, exploding outward to seize prey, and then retreating to digest, that natural selection has found almost nothing to improve upon in over 80 million years. The dorsally placed eyes and nostrils that allow the animal to submerge everything except its sensory organs. The laterally compressed tail that generates explosive forward thrust. The armored osteoderms embedded in the skin that deflect bites and absorb impacts. All of this was already functional when Tyrannosaurus rex was still walking the earth. And all of it still works today, in the same rivers, using the same strategy. During the age of the dinosaurs, the crocodilian lineage produced predators that would make Brutus look modest. Deinosuchus, which lived approximately 75 to 82 million years ago in the coastal swamps and river systems of what is now North America, reached estimated lengths of 10 to 12 meters, longer than a city bus, and may have weighed over 500 kilograms, roughly the weight of 2 full-grown hippos stacked together. Fossil evidence, including bite marks found on the bones of large hadrosaur dinosaurs, tells us that Deinosuchus hunted land-dwelling dinosaurs that came to the water to drink. The hunting method was identical to what Brutus uses on the Adelaide River. Wait in the shallows, let the prey approach, strike from below, drag it under. The only difference was the scale. Sarcosuchus, sometimes called supercroc, lived approximately 112 million years ago in what is now the Sahara Desert, which at the time was a lush tropical river system, threaded with waterways teeming with fish and terrestrial prey. Sarcosuchus reached comparable sizes to Deinosuchus, with a distinctive bulbous structure at the tip of its snout called a bulla, whose exact function paleontologists still debate. What they do not debate is what it ate. Sarcosuchus was an apex predator. It hunted from the water, and it used the same ambush and drag technique that its descendants use 2 million years later, on a different continent, in a different climate, but in the same ecological position. This is where the timeline stops making comfortable sense. The animal that grabbed a bull shark from the Adelaide River in 2014 was using a hunting strategy that predates the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs by at least 30 million years. The ambush, the explosive lunge, the jaw clamp, the drag beneath the surface. Brutus inherited this program the same way you inherited the shape of your hands. It was already refined before the Rocky Mountains existed. 66 million years ago, an asteroid approximately 10 to 15 kilometers in diameter, roughly the distance you would cover driving across a mid-sized city, struck the Yucatan Peninsula in what is now southeastern Mexico. The impact, known as the Shikayu event, released energy equivalent to roughly 10 billion nuclear detonations on the scale of Hiroshima. The shockwave flattened forests across multiple continents. The debris cloud blocked sunlight globally for months, possibly years. Surface temperatures plummeted. Photosynthesis collapsed across terrestrial and shallow marine ecosystems. The food web disintegrated from the bottom up. Every non-avian dinosaur on the planet went extinct. Marine reptiles like mosasaurs and plesiosaurs vanished. Pterosaurs disappeared. Approximately 75% of all species on Earth were erased within a geological instant. Crocodilians survived. How they survived when so many other large reptiles perished has been studied extensively. Paleontologist Paul Barrett of the Natural History Museum in London noted several traits that buffered crocodilians against the collapse. They were ectothermic, meaning their metabolic rate was dramatically lower than that of warm-blooded dinosaurs, so they required far less food to sustain themselves. They were semi-aquatic, giving them access to freshwater ecosystems that retain more stability than terrestrial environments during the impact winter. They could fast for extraordinary periods, surviving a year or more on stored fat reserves. And their young were small enough to subsist on insects, small fish, and invertebrates, food sources that persisted even when the larger prey animals disappeared entirely. The crocodilians that emerged from the extinction event were essentially unchanged. They had entered a world dominated by dinosaurs and come out the other side into a world where the dinosaurs were gone. The rivers were still there. The water's edge was still there. The ambush strategy still worked. So they continued. Brutus is separated from the animals that survived that asteroid by 66 million years of unbroken lineage. His genome carries the direct inheritance of organisms that watched the sky burn and simply sank below the waterline and waited it out. And then there is the other animal in that photograph. Because the bull shark thrashing in Brutus's jaws was not some passive victim that stumbled into the wrong stretch of river. Bull sharks are among the most aggressive, most adaptable, and most dangerous predators in the ocean. They account for more unprovoked attacks on humans than any shark species except the great white, and some researchers argue the real number is higher because bull sharks frequently attack in murky river water, where species identification by survivors and medical responders is unreliable. What makes the bull shark singular among sharks is its ability to move freely between saltwater and freshwater. Most sharks are obligate marine animals. Their blood chemistry relies on high concentrations of urea and trimethylamine oxide to maintain osmotic balance with the surrounding seawater. Place a typical shark in freshwater and it loses essential salts faster than it can replace them. The internal chemistry destabilizes. The animal dies within hours. Bull sharks crack this problem through a physiological adaptation centered in their kidneys and a specialized organ called the rectal gland. In salt water, their kidneys retain urea at high concentrations, matching the osmotic pressure of the ocean. When they move into freshwater, their kidneys shift modes, reducing urea output dramatically and increasing the production of dilute urine, flushing excess water from the body while conserving critical salts. The rectal gland, which in most sharks actively secretes concentrated sodium chloride, modulates its activity to match the surrounding environment. The transition takes days. It is metabolically expensive, but it is reliable enough that bull sharks have been documented in freshwater systems staggeringly far from the open ocean. In the Mississippi River, bull sharks have been caught as far upstream as Alton, Illinois, more than 100 kilometers from the Gulf of Mexico. That is further from the ocean than the city of Nashville. In Lake Nicaragua, a landlocked freshwater body in Central America, bull sharks established a self-sustaining population by navigating the San Juan River from the Caribbean Sea. Fishermen along the lake called them lake sharks for decades before biologists confirmed they were genetically identical to the bull sharks found in the open Atlantic. In Australia, bull sharks enter river systems along the entire northern and eastern coastline: the Brisbane River, the Mary River, the Fitzroy River, and, of course, the Adelaide River. They follow the tidal flow through the estuary, hunting fish, rays, and smaller sharks in the brackish water. During the wet season, they push further upriver, sometimes riding the flood current into waters so far from the coast that the salt content drops to near zero. They can do this because their kidneys adjust, their blood chemistry recalibrates, and for a period of days or weeks, they operate as freshwater predators. They do this successfully everywhere they go. In the Mississippi, they are the apex fish predator in the lower river system. In the Ganges River in India, they hunt alongside and occasionally prey upon the river dolphins. In the Amazon, they have been documented hundreds of kilometers upstream of the river mouth. In every river system they enter, they dominate. Except in the rivers where saltwater crocodiles are waiting. The place where Brutus and the bull sharks meet is the estuary. Estuaries are the transitional zones where rivers meet the sea, where fresh water flowing downstream collides with saltwater pushed inland by tides. They are among the most biologically productive ecosystems on Earth, supporting dense populations of fish, crustaceans, and the predators that feed on them. Mangrove forests line many tropical estuaries, their root systems creating underwater labyrinths that serve as nurseries for juvenile fish and crustaceans. For bull sharks, estuaries are feeding grounds and birthing rooms. Pregnant females frequently enter estuarine and riverine systems to give birth, likely because the reduced salinity and shallow water offer their pups some protection from larger ocean predators, particularly tiger sharks and great whites, that would readily eat a newborn bull shark in the open sea. The juveniles grow in the relative safety of the river before migrating to the ocean as adults. For saltwater crocodiles, estuaries are home territory. Dominant males like Brutus control define stretches of river that include the tidal transition zone, giving them access to a rotating menu of both freshwater and saltwater prey. They eat barramundi, mud crabs, water birds, wallabies, feral pigs, and anything else that enters the water within striking distance. A large male saltwater crocodile is an indiscriminate apex predator. If it fits between the jaws, it is food. Bull sharks fit between the jaws. The dynamic between these two animals is not a rivalry. It is not a contest between equals. It is predation. The crocodile hunts the shark the same way it hunts a wallaby, or a large fish. It waits, motionless, just below the surface, or partially submerged against the riverbank. It detects the approaching prey, and it strikes. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe now. This channel covers stories like this every week, and the algorithm stops showing you these videos if you do not subscribe. The next one covers something even older buried in the geological record, and you do not want to miss it. In 2012, biomechanist Gregory Erickson at Florida State University published a landmark study in the journal PLOS-1 that quantified the bite force of every living crocodilian species. Erickson and his team designed custom bite force transducers, essentially armored pressure sensors wrapped in protective material, and placed them between the jaws of captive crocodilians ranging from small dwarf caimans to full-grown saltwater crocodiles. The results redrew the map of predatory mechanics. A 4.59-meter saltwater crocodile, an animal slightly shorter than Brutus, generated a bite force of approximately 16,460 newtons, or roughly 3,700 pounds of force per square inch. To understand what that number means, compare it across the animal kingdom. A lion, an animal humans instinctively regard as one of the most dangerous predators alive, bites with approximately 450 newtons. A grizzly bear, with jaws built for crushing bone and tearing salmon apart, reaches roughly 8,000 newtons. A spotted hyena, famous for cracking open the femurs of wildebeest to access the marrow inside, generates about 4,500 newtons. The saltwater crocodile doubles the grizzly bear and nearly quadruples the lion. And no, that is not a typo. Erickson noted that if the same scaling relationship held for the largest confirmed saltwater crocodiles, animals exceeding 6 meters, the bite force could theoretically exceed 27,000 newtons. At that level, a saltwater crocodile would approach the estimated bite force of Tyrannosaurus rex, which paleontologists have modeled at approximately 35,000 to 57,000 newtons, using fossil jaw morphology and muscle attachment analysis. A living reptile on a river in northern Australia generates a jaw force in the same order of magnitude as the most celebrated predator in the fossil record. But bite force alone does not explain how Brutus kills a bull shark. The actual kill involves a behavior called the death roll. When a crocodile seizes prey too large to swallow in one piece, it clamps its jaws shut and then rotates its entire body along its longitudinal axis, spinning rapidly in the water. The rotational force is devastating. It tears flesh, dislocates joints, and separates limbs from torsos. For a bull shark clamped sideways in the jaws of a 5.5-meter crocodile executing a death roll, the torsional forces acting on the shark's cartilaginous skeleton would exceed its structural limits within seconds. Shark skin is covered in dermal denticles, tiny tooth-like scales that reduce drag during swimming, and provide some defense against abrasion and the teeth of other predators. Against the compressive and rotational forces of a crocodile death roll, dermal denticles offer no meaningful protection. Shark skin evolved to resist the lateral biting forces of other ocean predators. It was never tested against the crushing rotational mechanics of an animal that diverged from the shark's evolutionary context by over 200 million years. The two animals come from such different engineering lineages that the shark's defenses are simply irrelevant to the crocodile's attack. The ambush itself is refined beyond what most people imagine. Saltwater crocodiles can remain completely motionless for hours, submerged with only their eyes and nostrils breaking the surface, functionally invisible in the turbid water of an estuarine river. Their sensory systems are optimized for exactly this kind of hunting. Integumentary sense organs, abbreviated as ISOs, are distributed across the crocodile's jaw and body. These small dome-shaped pits in the skin function as pressure receptors with extraordinary sensitivity. A swimming bull shark displaces water as it moves. That displacement creates pressure waves that radiate outward through the liquid. The crocodile detects those waves from several meters away, in total darkness, through water so murky that visual detection is physically impossible. The crocodile knows the shark is there before the shark has any indication it has entered a kill zone. The strike, when it comes, happens faster than a human eye can process in real time. Saltwater crocodiles can launch from a stationary position to full attack speed in under half a second. The tail generates the initial thrust. The jaws close with the full force that Erickson measured. and the prey, whether it is a wallaby at the waterline or a bull shark cruising through the estuary, is beneath the surface before its own nervous system finishes registering the attack. This is not a fight, it is a trap engineered by a lineage that has been setting the same trap since before the Atlantic Ocean opened. The wound where Brutus's front right leg used to be tells a story on its own. Wildlife biologists who have observed him at close range from cruise boats describe the injury site as fully healed, leaving a smooth, calloused stump with no sign of active infection or ongoing tissue degradation. For an animal living in warm, bacteria-saturated river water, recovering from a traumatic limb amputation without succumbing to infection seems almost unreasonable. For a crocodilian, it is standard. Research published in 2008 by biochemist Mark Merchant at McNeese State University in Louisiana demonstrated that crocodilian blood serum contains antimicrobial peptides with broad-spectrum activity against bacteria that are resistant to conventional antibiotics, including methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, commonly known as MRSA. Merchant exposed crocodilian serum to 23 strains of bacteria and documented antimicrobial activity across nearly all of them. The results suggested that crocodilians carry what amounts to a chemical immune defense in their blood that can neutralize infections that would overwhelm the immune systems of mammals. The water Brutus lives in is a microbial soup. Every wound he sustains, every territorial bite, every abrasion from dragging prey across submerged logs, occurs in an environment that would cause life-threatening sepsis in a mammal of comparable body mass. His immune system handles it. His body sealed the amputation wound, cleared whatever infection inevitably entered the site, and regenerated enough tissue to close the injury permanently. And he went back to hunting with 3 legs. That resilience is not willpower. It is not grit in the way humans romanticize the word. It is the product of a genome that has been tested by every catastrophe this planet has produced over 200 million years and continued operating. The same biological durability that allowed crocodilians to survive the asteroid, survive the ice ages, survive the breakup of continents and the flooding of entire land masses, is working inside Brutus right now, on a river in northern Australia, in an animal older than most of the buildings in the nearest town. Brutus is the most famous example of a crocodile killing a bull shark, but he is far from the only one. Saltwater crocodiles prey on sharks across their entire geographic range, from the river systems of northern Australia to the estuaries of Borneo and Sumatra to the coastal waterways of eastern India and Sri Lanka. In Western Australia, a research team conducting aerial surveys of the Fitzroy River in 2010 documented a large saltwater crocodile consuming what appeared to be a juvenile bull shark on an exposed sandbar. The crocodile was estimated at over 5 meters. The shark was approximately 1.5 meters, about the height of an average adult woman. The researchers photographed the event from the air but could not recover samples. In Queensland, commercial fishermen along the Proserpine River and the Pioneer River have reported finding bull shark remains on riverbanks with bite patterns consistent with crocodile attacks. The carcasses are typically torn into large sections or bitten cleanly in half, both patterns consistent with the death roll. Researchers monitoring crocodile diet through stomach content analysis, using non-invasive lavage techniques on captured animals, have recovered shark vertebrae, shark teeth, and fragments of dermal denticles from the stomachs of large male saltwater crocodiles in multiple river systems across the Northern Territory and Queensland. The frequency of these findings indicates that shark predation is not an anomaly. It is a regular component of the diet for crocodiles that occupy estuarine territories, where sharks are present. The pattern across all of these observations is consistent. In every location where saltwater crocodiles and bull sharks share habitat, the crocodile is the dominant predator. Not because the crocodile is faster. In open water, the bull shark is significantly faster. Not because the crocodile has better sensory range. Bull sharks possess electroreception through their ampullae of Lorenzini, specialized sensory organs in the snout that detect the faint electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of nearby animals. Crocodiles lack this ability entirely. The crocodile dominates because it does not need to chase, it does not need to detect electrical fields. It needs only to wait. And when you are sharing a river with an animal that has been perfecting the discipline of waiting for 200 million years, speed and electroreception are not enough to save you. The asymmetry of risk in these encounters is the detail that changes the picture entirely. For a bull shark entering an estuary, every shadow along the riverbank, every submerged log, every patch of floating vegetation could conceal a crocodile. The shark cannot scan its environment the way it would in open ocean. Visibility in estuarine water is often less than 30 centimeters, about the length of a standard ruler. The bull shark is swimming effectively blind through a corridor lined with ambush predators, whose sensory systems are specifically tuned to detect it. For the crocodile, the arrival of a bull shark is not a threat, it is a caloric opportunity. A 1.5-meter bull shark represents roughly 40 to 60 kilograms of dense, protein-rich food, equivalent in nutritional value to a medium-sized kangaroo. The crocodile applies the same hunting technique it uses for every other prey animal of comparable size. The shark receives no special consideration and no special strategy. It is just another animal that entered the water within range. Think about what that means for the bull shark's evolutionary position. In the open ocean, the bull shark sits near the top of the food web, outcompeted only by larger sharks and orcas. In the rivers it enters, it dominates every other fish and most other vertebrates. It is, by nearly every metric, one of the most successful predatory designs the ocean has produced in the last 25 million years. But in the rivers of northern Australia, the bull shark is prey. It is food for an animal whose hunting program was already ancient when the bull shark lineage first diverged from its closest relatives. The bull shark's 20 to 25 million year evolutionary history is genuinely impressive. The saltwater crocodile's lineage is roughly 10 times older. The shark enters the river as an apex predator. It meets something that was already there when the concept of apex predation was being invented. And the encounters are increasing. As global sea levels rise and storm surges push saltwater further inland, the overlap zones between marine and freshwater ecosystems are expanding. Estuaries are widening. Tidal influence is reaching further upriver. The transitional habitats where bull sharks and saltwater crocodiles coexist are growing in area, and both species are responding. Marine ecologists at Charles Darwin University in the Northern Territory have documented shifts in saltwater crocodile distribution along Australia's northern coastline that correlate with changing environmental conditions. Crocodiles are appearing in river reaches where they were previously rare, establishing territories in new estuarine zones as those zones expand. The population has been recovering steadily since commercial hunting was banned under Australian federal law in 1971. Before that ban, hunting had reduced the saltwater crocodile population across northern Australia by an estimated 95%, meaning that for every 20 crocodiles that existed before commercial hunting began, only one remained when protections were finally enacted. Today, the Northern Territory alone is home to an estimated 100,000 saltwater crocodiles, roughly one for every 2.5 residents of the territory's capital city, Darwin. Bull sharks, meanwhile, are pushing deeper into fresh water. Studies in Queensland have documented bull sharks in previously unrecorded sections of river systems, likely in response to altered water flow patterns caused by increased rainfall variability and changing monsoon timing. The sharks follow the water wherever it goes. The crocodiles are already occupying whatever habitat that water fills. The implication is direct. Events like the one captured in that 2014 photograph of Brutus are going to become more frequent, not less. Two apex predator populations are being compressed into the same transitional habitats by environmental forces neither species controls. And when they meet in those habitats, the result is consistent with every observation on record. The crocodile wins. Conservation of both species depends on understanding this dynamic clearly. Saltwater crocodiles were nearly exterminated in Australia within living memory. Their recovery is one of the most dramatic conservation successes in the history of wildlife management. But it generates ongoing tension with human communities expanding into crocodile habitat across the Northern Territory in Queensland. Fatal attacks on humans occur, and each incident reignites debate about population management. Bull sharks face a different set of pressures that receive less public attention. Overfishing, habitat degradation in the river systems they depend on for reproduction, industrial pollution, and the destruction of mangrove nurseries along tropical coastlines are all reducing bull shark populations globally. The International Union for Conservation of Nature lists the bull shark as vulnerable, reflecting declining numbers across much of the species range. An animal that has been navigating between ocean and river for 20 million years is losing access to the rivers. Both species are ancient. Both are adapted to environments that humans are now reshaping at speeds neither genome can match. And both are being pushed into closer contact with each other and with us by forces that show no sign of reversing. Brutus is still on the Adelaide River. Tour operators confirm sightings of him through the 2025 dry season. He is slower than he was a decade ago. His movements are more deliberate. The explosive strikes that once launched him clear of the water during the jumping crocodile cruises are less frequent. But he surfaces. He patrols. And when something enters his stretch of river, the calculation has not changed. The animal photographed with a bull shark in its jaws over a decade ago has likely killed thousands of individual prey animals over the course of its life. It has survived injuries that would have been fatal to any mammal its size. It has persisted through environmental disruptions that have driven dozens of species to extinction within its own lifetime. And it has accomplished all of this using a body plan and a hunting strategy that were already proven before the first flower bloomed on Earth. The question worth sitting with is not how Brutus kills bull sharks. That part is mechanical. Ambush, bite, roll, drag, consume. The technique has not changed in 200 million years, because it did not need to change. The question is, what it means that this animal is still here at all. That after 5 mass extinctions, after asteroid impacts and ice ages and the drowning of entire continents, after the rise and fall of the dinosaurs and the emergence and global dominance of mammals, a single crocodile on a river in northern Australia is still executing the same ambush program that its ancestors were running when the supercontinent Pangaea was in one piece. Every other apex predator lineage on the planet has been redesigned, replaced, or driven to extinction over that time frame. The crocodile has not. It waits at the water's edge. It watches, it strikes, and it has been doing exactly this for longer than any mountain range currently standing on the surface of the Earth. Brutus will die. Maybe this season. Maybe in a decade. 80 years is extraordinary for any animal, but it is not infinite. When he goes, the stretch of Adelaide River he controlled will be claimed by another male. That male will patrol the same banks, occupy the same ambush positions, and eventually encounter the same bull sharks pushing upriver through the same estuary. And the result will be the same. Because the design works, it has always worked, and the river does not care how old the hunter is, only whether the jaws still close. If you want to see what else has been hiding in the deep record, click the video on the screen right now.